The morning sun blazed mercilessly over forward operating base Ironclad, transforming the Afghan dust into shimmering waves that distorted everything beyond 200 yards. Staff Sergeant Maya Ghost Rodriguez knelt beside 8-year-old Ahmad, a local boy who'd taken shrapnel in his leg from an IED meant for American vehicles. While medics scrambled to prep the helicopter evacuation, Maya held the child's hand, speaking to him in broken Pashto, her voice steady and reassuring despite the chaos erupting around them. Before continuing this story, please comment below with your city or country where you're watching from. Your feedback inspires us to do better. You're going to be fine, brave one, Maya whispered as she carefully adjusted the pressure dressing on Ahmad's wounded leg. The doctors will fix this, and you'll be running again before the monsoons come. The boy's eyes, wide with pain and terror, focused on her face as she worked. Even with mortar rounds falling in the distance and the compound's alarm sirens wailing, Maya's hands remained steady, her demeanor calm. She'd seen enough battlefield trauma to know that panic was contagious, but so was courage. "There," she said softly as the stretcher team arrived. "See? I told you help was coming." As the helicopter lifted off with Ahmad safely aboard, Maya stood and dusted off her uniform. She'd volunteered for the rescue mission, risking her own neck to pull a wounded child from a danger zone while everyone else followed protocol and waited for explosive ordnance disposal to clear the area. But her heroic act was about to collide with the casual bigotry that had shadowed her entire military career. "Must be nice playing nursemaid while the rest of us do the real work," Corporal Jake Bulldog Harrison announced loudly to his squad mates, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension that had become all too familiar. He stood near the motor pool with 3 other Marines, all of them sporting the kind of swagger that came from never having been properly tested. "Yeah," agreed Lance Corporal Tommy Chen, a kid barely out of boot camp who compensated for his inexperience with attitude. "Rodriguez probably thinks she's a real operator now. Next thing you know, she'll want to carry a rifle instead of bandages." Their laughter carried across the compound like smoke from a trash fire, following Maya as she walked toward the armory. She'd heard variations of these comments for the past 2 years at FOB Ironclad, ever since she'd been assigned to support duties instead of the sniper role she'd trained for. What they didn't know, what command had buried so deep in classified files that most people would never see it, was that Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez held the unofficial record for longest confirmed kill in Marine Corps history. Her call sign Ghost hadn't come from her quiet demeanor. It had come from her ability to eliminate targets at ranges that defied physics and belief. But that was before the incident in Syria, before she'd disobeyed direct orders to eliminate a suspected terrorist who turned out to be a 14-year-old boy carrying water, not explosives. Before she'd been quietly reassigned to medical support and told that her sniper days were over. Maya kept walking, her weathered M40A5 rifle case slung across her shoulder like a burden she was forbidden to use. She'd carried that rifle through 3 combat zones, taking shots that had saved countless American lives. Now it spent most of its time locked in the armory while she ran medical supplies and coordinated evacuations. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same Marines who mocked her support role had no idea that the woman they dismissed as a paper pusher had once held an entire Taliban compound at bay, while a SEAL team extracted high-value intelligence. They didn't know that her precision had prevented a chemical weapons attack on a Kurdish village, or that her single shot had eliminated a sniper who'd been terrorizing a refugee camp for weeks. They just saw a quiet Latina woman who seemed to attract paperwork and medical emergencies, not the warrior who'd earned her reputation in the shadows of classified operations. Rodriguez. The voice belonged to Major Patricia Williams, the battalion executive officer, a career politician in uniform who'd never seen combat but had mastered the art of looking busy while others did the dangerous work. Maya stopped and turned, coming to attention. "Yes, ma'am. We've got a medical supply run to Outpost Thunder. Load up the convoy and make sure you've got enough morphine for their wounded. Intelligence reports light enemy activity, so this should be routine." "Understood, ma'am." Maya's voice was neutral, professional, but something cold flickered behind her dark eyes. In her experience, the mission's command labeled routine were usually the ones that went sideways fastest. "And Rodriguez," Major Williams added, with the casual dismissal that military bureaucrats had perfected, Make sure you stay with the convoy. We can't afford to lose our best medic to some heroic nonsense. The words stung more than Williams probably intended. Or maybe she intended exactly that. Maya had requested return to active sniper duties 17 times in the past 2 years. Each request had been denied with the same form letter citing personnel needs and operational requirements. What it really meant was that someone upstairs had decided Maya Rodriguez was too dangerous to trust with a rifle, too unpredictable to deploy in situations where split-second decisions could mean the difference between mission success and international incident. So they'd caged the wolf and tried to convince everyone, including Maya herself, that she was actually a sheep. "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied. "I'll stay with the convoy." But as she walked toward the motor pool to prep the medical supplies, Maya's mind was already working through contingencies that had nothing to do with gauze and antibiotics. Something about this mission felt wrong. The intelligence briefing had been too clean, the route too predictable, the enemy activity assessment too optimistic. In her quarters that night, Maya opened her personal notebook, a battered composition book filled with her own intelligence analysis, terrain studies, and tactical observations that no one in command had bothered to request. She'd been keeping detailed records of enemy patterns in the sector, tracking movement and activity that suggested something much larger than the random attacks command attributed to disorganized insurgents. According to her calculations, 480s, Marines from 3 different units were scheduled to move through a valley system that showed every sign of being a perfectly orchestrated trap. The terrain channeled vehicle movement into predictable kill zones, the timing coincided with major insurgent activity, and the intelligence assessment read like wishful thinking rather than professional analysis. Maya had tried to raise these concerns through proper channels. She'd submitted reports to the S2 intelligence section, requested meetings with company commanders, even attempted to brief Major Williams directly. Each time she'd been told to stay in her lane and focus on medical logistics rather than tactical analysis. But the mathematics of death don't care about lanes or protocol. Maya could see the geometry of the ambush as clearly as if someone had drawn it on a whiteboard. In 18 hours, those 480 Marines would roll into a valley that would become their grave, unless someone with the skills to change the equation was positioned to make the impossible shots that protocol prohibited. Maya made her decision with the same cold calculations she'd once used to estimate wind speed at 1,000 meters. She quietly requisitioned additional medical supplies for routine convoy operations, packed her personal gear, and settled down to clean her rifle one last time. The M40A5 came apart in her hands with the familiar ritual of someone who'd performed this ceremony thousands of times. Every component was inspected, cleaned, and reassembled with the precision of a master craftsman working on her masterpiece. The rifle wasn't just a tool to Maya. It was an extension of her will, a precision instrument capable of reaching out across impossible distances to touch targets that conventional weapons couldn't even see. She loaded match-grade ammunition into her magazines, checking each round individually for defects that might affect accuracy. Her notebook contained detailed ballistic tables for every type of ammunition the Marine Corps issued, along with her own handwritten corrections based on years of field experience. At 0300 hours, Maya performed one final equipment check: rifle, ammunition, rangefinder, communications gear, medical supplies, and enough water to sustain her through a long day of shooting. Everything she needed to single-handedly alter the course of a battle that command didn't even know was coming. She slipped out of her quarters like smoke dissipating in the wind, moving through the compound with the ghost-like silence that had earned her call sign. The night guards never saw her pass, the motion sensors never registered her movement, and the security cameras somehow failed to capture her passage. Maya had learned these skills in places that didn't exist on any official maps, during operations that had been erased from the historical record for reasons of national security. She was more than just a sniper. She was a complete weapon system, trained to operate independently behind enemy lines for extended periods. The valley where the ambush would occur was 12 kilometers from FOB Ironclad, through mountainous terrain that would challenge even experienced climbers. Maya covered the distance in just under 3 hours, moving through the darkness with the steady pace of someone who'd run similar distances under fire. She reached her overwatch position 40 minutes before dawn, settling into a hide site she'd identified weeks earlier during her unofficial reconnaissance of the area. From this position, 900 meters above the valley floor, Maya had clear sight lines to the kill zones where the enemy would position their weapons. Through her rifle scope, she could see the careful preparation that confirmed her worst fears. Machine gun positions expertly camouflaged along the ridgelines. Mortar teams pre-positioned with fields of fire calculated to destroy any vehicle that stopped. And sniper hides that would allow enemy marksmen to pick off anyone who tried to take him. Cover. This wasn't a random ambush by disorganized insurgents. This was a military-grade operation planned and executed by professionals who'd studied American tactics and prepared accordingly. At 0630 hours, Maya's radio crackled with the morning convoy reports. Right on schedule, 480 Marines from 3 different units were beginning their movement toward the valley. They rolled out in standard formation, following predictable routes, maintaining radio protocols that had been compromised weeks ago. Maya settled behind her rifle and began the mental preparation that transformed her from a medical logistics coordinator into something much more dangerous. Her breathing slowed to the rhythm she'd learned in sniper school. Her heart rate dropped to the steady cadence that marked the difference between amateur and expert. At 0750 hours, the first convoy entered the kill zone. The ambush erupted with the coordinated fury of a professional military operation. Machine guns opened fire from concealed positions. Mortars began walking their rounds along the convoy route, and sniper fire started picking off anyone who showed themselves above the vehicle armor. Within 60 seconds, the carefully planned movement had become a desperate fight for survival. Vehicles burned, Marines screamed for medical attention, and radio calls for help dissolved into static and panic. In the command center at FOB Ironclad, Major Williams stared at the tactical display in horror as friendly symbols began disappearing from the screen. The routine supply convoy had driven into a nightmare that intelligence had failed to predict, and protocol hadn't prepared them to handle. "We need immediate air support," Colonel Marcus Davidson commanded, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Full strike package to those grid coordinates." "Sir," replied the air operations officer, "the friendlies are too close to enemy positions. Danger close restrictions apply." "We can't drop ordnance without risking our own people." "Then what are our options?" "Artillery is masked by terrain. Apache helicopters can't get close enough due to surface-to-air missile threats. Ground reinforcements are 4 hours away minimum." The unspoken truth hung in the air like poison gas. 480 Marines were about to die, and nobody in the command center knew how to stop it from happening. That's when Maya's voice cut through the chaos on the radio net, calm as morning coffee despite the violence erupting around her. "Command, this is Ghost 7. I have eyes on the target area and request permission to engage." The command center fell silent except for the static-filled screams coming from the valley. Everyone knew that call sign, but nobody could quite believe what they were hearing. "Ghost 7, confirm your location and unit assignment," Major Williams demanded, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Ghost 7 is independently positioned with clear lines of sight to enemy strongpoints. Request immediate engagement authority." Colonel Davidson grabbed the radio handset. "Ghost 7, identify yourself immediately." "This is not an authorized operation." Maya's response was delivered with the same professional calm she'd once used to report target eliminations to Joint Special Operations Command. "Sir, this is Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez. I am in position to neutralize the ambush and extract the friendlies. Request permission to engage immediately." The silence that followed was profound and terrible. Every officer in the command center understood what they were hearing. The medic they'd sidelined was offering to single-handedly rescue an entire battalion. "Negative, Ghost 7, Major Williams snapped. "Return to base immediately." "That is a direct order." "Ma'am," Maya replied, her voice carrying a note of weary patience. "With respect, I can see 19 enemy positions from my current location. I have clear shot solutions to each target. I can break this ambush in under 10 minutes. You will return to base, Sergeant. This conversation is over." Maya looked through her scope at the Marines dying in the valley below. Young men and women who'd never had a chance to see the trap they'd walked into. She watched a medic trying to drag a wounded Marine to cover while machine gun fire chewed up the ground around them. She saw a squad leader attempting to organize a counterattack, while mortar rounds walked closer to his position. These were her people, her Marines, her responsibility. Negative, Command, Maya said quietly. I'm going to work. She disconnected the radio and settled into the shooting position that had become as natural as breathing. 18 months earlier, somewhere in Syria, Captain Maya Rodriguez lay motionless in the rocky outcrop, her rifle trained on a compound where intelligence indicated a high-value target was planning a chemical weapons attack. She'd been in position for 14 hours, waiting for confirmation that her target was actually the terrorist leader and not an innocent civilian. Ghost 7, this is Control, crackled through her earpiece. Target is confirmed. You are cleared to engage. Through her scope, Maya watched a figure emerge from the building. A young man wearing traditional robes, carrying what appeared to be a weapon. The shot would be straightforward, 400 meters through clear air. But something nagged at her. The target's movement patterns, his posture, the way he held the object in his hands. Maya had seen enough real terrorists to recognize the difference between someone carrying a rifle and someone carrying something else entirely. Control, negative on the shot, Maya whispered. Target appears to be carrying water, not weapons. Request confirmation of hostile intent. Ghost 7, you have your orders. Target is confirmed hostile. Engage immediately. Maya kept the crosshairs centered on the young man's chest, her finger resting lightly on the trigger. One squeeze, and the mission would be complete. But her instincts screamed that something was wrong. The figure turned, and Maya caught a glimpse of his face through her scope. He couldn't have been more than 14 years old. Control. Target appears to be a juvenile carrying water containers. I cannot confirm hostile intent. Requesting immediate clarification. Ghost 7. Engage the target immediately. That is a direct order. Maya watched the boy, because that's what he was, a boy, as he approached a group of women and children who were clearly his family. He was bringing them water during the hottest part of the day, not weapons or explosives. Control, Maya said with quiet finality. I'm not shooting a kid for carrying water. She lifted her eye from the scope and began packing her equipment, knowing that her career as a sniper had just ended. 2 days later, she was reassigned to medical support duties and told that her combat role was being re-evaluated for optimum utilization of her skill set. The official language translated to, Maya Rodriguez was too principled to trust with life or death decisions. Present day, Afghanistan. Maya had learned to live with the consequences of doing the right thing. But watching Marines die while bureaucrats debated protocol was a consequence she wouldn't accept. Her first shot eliminated the machine gun nest that had been shredding the lead convoy vehicles. The suppressed crack of her rifle was lost in the chaos of the battle, but the sudden silence from that particular weapon was noticed immediately by every Marine in the kill zone. Somebody got the gun on the East Ridge, shouted a squad leader over the radio. Maya was already acquiring her second target, a mortar team that had been dropping rounds with surgical precision into the convoy formation. Her bullet found the gunner just as he was preparing to fire another round. The mortar tube tilted askew, the remaining rounds scattered uselessly. Through her scope, Maya could see the Marines beginning to realize that someone was systematically eliminating their tormentors. They started moving with more purpose, taking advantage of the gaps she was creating in the enemy's coordination. Command, this is Alpha 6, came a voice over the radio. Someone's providing overwatch. Precision rifle fire from elevated position. Whatever unit that is, they're saving our asses. In the command center, Major Williams stared at the tactical display as enemy positions went dark one by one. The ambush that had seemed unstoppable minutes earlier was being systematically dismantled by a single shooter. Sir, the intelligence officer said quietly to Colonel Davidson, Ghost 7's service record just came through on the secure terminal. You need to see this. Davidson read the classified file in silence, his expression shifting from anger to amazement to something approaching awe. Maya Rodriguez hadn't just been a sniper. She'd been one of the most effective precision shooters in Marine Corps history, with confirmed eliminations in situations that defied belief. Jesus Christ, Davidson muttered. Why the hell was she assigned to medical support? The Syria incident, sir. She refused to engage a target that turned out to be a non-combatant civilian. Command decided she was too independent for active sniper operations. So we benched our best shooter because she wouldn't murder a child? Before the intelligence officer could answer, Maya's voice cut through the radio chatter with professional calm. Command, this is Ghost 7. I have eliminated 17 enemy positions. Convoy has clear corridor for extraction to grid coordinates 41 SMB, 12,345, 67,890. Recommend immediate medevac for casualties. Ghost 7, Colonel Davidson said into the radio. This is Black Hawk 6. Outstanding work. All available air assets are inbound to your location. Copy, Black Hawk 6. I'll maintain overwatch until friendlies are clear. Maya continued working through her target list with methodical precision. Each shot was calculated not just for accuracy, but for maximum psychological effect on the remaining enemy fighters. She eliminated command nodes first, then weapons teams, then anyone who tried to rally the survivors. The ambush that had been perfectly planned began to collapse as its coordination broke down. Enemy fighters started abandoning their positions, some fleeing deeper into the mountains, others surrendering to the Marines they'd been trying to kill minutes earlier. By the time the rescue helicopters arrived, Maya had single-handedly transformed a massacre into a manageable tactical situation. The Marines loaded their wounded and began extracting in good order, covered by air support that could now operate safely thanks to the suppression Maya had provided. Ghost 7, this is Dustoff 1, came the voice of the medical evacuation helicopter pilot. We've got all the casualties. Extraction complete. Outstanding shooting. Copy, Dustoff 1. Ghost 7 is coming down. Maya packed her rifle and began the careful descent from her overwatch position. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, replaced by the bone-deep fatigue that came after hours of precision shooting under combat stress. She'd fired 37 rounds and eliminated 35 targets. In sniper terms, that was perfection. In human terms, it was 35 people who wouldn't be going home to their families. Maya had never enjoyed killing, but she'd learned to accept it as part of her profession. Today's work had been about saving Marines, not satisfying some bloodthirsty impulse. Every shot had been calculated to preserve American lives, and she'd succeeded beyond what anyone thought possible. When she reached the valley floor, Maya found a changed landscape. Marines who'd been pinned down were now moving freely, checking on wounded comrades, securing equipment, and providing aid to captured enemy fighters. The difference between chaos and order was measured in the precision of her shooting. "You go 7?" asked a dusty sergeant whose combat engineer patch identified him as someone who usually dealt with explosives, not enemy combatants. "That's right." "Well, Ghost 7, you just saved my entire squad. We were about 10 seconds from being overrun when you started dropping targets." He extended his hand with obvious respect. "I don't know how the hell you made those shots, but thank you." Maya shook his hand, noting the genuine gratitude in his eyes. This was why she'd become a Marine, not for recognition or career advancement, but for moments like this when her skills made the difference between Americans coming home alive or in body bags. The helicopter ride back to FOB Ironclad gave Maya time to consider what would happen next. She'd directly disobeyed orders, abandoned her assigned position, and conducted an unauthorized combat operation. By any reasonable military standard, she was looking at court-martial proceedings and probable discharge. But she'd also prevented what would have been the worst Marine casualties in Afghanistan since Operation Enduring Freedom began. That had to count for something, even in an organization as procedure-obsessed as the United States military. When the helicopter touched down at FOB Ironclad, Maya was surprised to see Colonel Davidson waiting for her, along with Major Williams and most of the senior staff. Their expressions were unreadable, but the fact that they were all present suggested this wasn't going to be a routine debriefing. "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez," Colonel Davidson said as she stepped off the helicopter, "report to the command center immediately." "Yes, sir." Maya followed the officers across the compound, noting the stares from other Marines who'd already heard about the Valley rescue. Some looked at her with obvious admiration, others with the kind of curiosity reserved for dangerous animals in zoos. In the command center, Maya stood at attention while Colonel Davidson consulted a thick file folder, undoubtedly her complete service record, including the classified portions that had been buried after Syria. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Davidson began formally, you directly disobeyed orders from a superior officer, abandoned your assigned duties, and conducted an unauthorized military operation in a combat zone. Yes, sir. Those actions constitute multiple violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice and normally would result in court-martial proceedings. I understand, sir. Davidson closed the folder and looked at Maya directly. They would also, under normal circumstances, represent the actions of someone who put personal judgment above military discipline and unit cohesion. Maya remained at attention, waiting for the inevitable conclusion of this formal reprimand. However, Davidson continued, these are not normal circumstances. Your unauthorized operation prevented what our analysts now estimate would have been 70% casualties among the 480 Marines in that valley. Your precision shooting eliminated 35 enemy combatants without causing any collateral damage or friendly fire incidents. He paused, consulting another document. Furthermore, your tactical analysis of the enemy ambush has proven to be completely accurate. Intelligence has confirmed that this was a coordinated operation involving over 100 enemy fighters, pre-positioned with the specific intent of destroying American forces in that valley. Maya felt a glimmer of something she hadn't experienced. In 18 months, recognition for her actual capabilities rather than the bureaucratic category she'd been stuffed into. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, I'm recommending you for the Silver Star for gallantry in action. I'm also immediately reinstating your sniper qualification and transferring you to the battalion's designated marksman section. Maya blinked, certain she'd misheard. Sir? The Syria incident has been reviewed by higher headquarters, Davidson continued. Your refusal to engage a non-combatant has been reclassified as proper application of rules of engagement rather than failure to follow orders. Your sniper qualification is hereby restored with full operational authority. Major Williams stepped forward with obvious reluctance. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, I owe you an apology. I misjudged your capabilities and your commitment to this unit. I was wrong. Thank you, ma'am. Davidson smiled, the first genuine expression Maya had seen from him. Rodriguez, we've got 3 more operations planned for this sector over the next month. I want your input on the tactical planning, and I want you positioned to provide overwatch for all of them. Yes, sir. As Maya left the command center, she passed the group of Marines who'd been mocking her that morning. They stood in awkward silence, suddenly very interested in their boots. None of them seemed to have anything clever to say about dead weight or support personnel anymore. Corporal Harrison, who'd been the loudest critic, stepped forward with obvious embarrassment. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, he said formally, I want to apologize for my comments this morning. I was out of line and completely wrong about your capabilities. Forget it, Corporal. We're all here to do a job. But Harrison wasn't finished. Ma'am, my squad was in that convoy today. You saved our lives. All of us. Maya looked at the young Marine, really looked at him, and saw something that hadn't been there before. Respect, genuine and hard-earned. Just doing my job, Marine. That evening, Maya sat in her quarters, cleaning her rifle and updating her notebooks with the day's lessons learned. The M40A5 had performed flawlessly, the ammunition had been accurate, and her shooting had been as precise as anything she'd accomplished during her classified operations. But more than that, Maya Rodriguez had rediscovered something she'd lost in Syria. The knowledge that sometimes doing the right thing required breaking the rules, and that sometimes the most important battles were fought not against enemy forces but against the bureaucratic mindset that tried to fit warriors into administrative categories. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her sister back in Texas. Saw the news about Marines rescued in Afghanistan. Can't tell if you were involved, but stay safe. Marcus asks when Aunt Maya is coming home. Maya smiled, thinking about her 8-year-old nephew who wanted to be a Marine sniper just like his aunt. She'd promised to teach him to shoot when she came home on leave, to pass on the skills her father had taught her on the family ranch so many years ago. But first, she had work to finish. 3 more operations, dozens of Marines who needed someone watching their backs from impossible distances, and a reputation to rebuild one precision shot at a time. The next morning, Maya reported to the battalion sniper section for the first time in 18 months. The other snipers, all male, all younger, all carrying varying degrees of curiosity about the legend who'd been relegated to medical support, watched as she assembled her rifle and prepared for the range qualification that would officially restore her to active status. Master Sergeant Carlos Reaper Santos, a 20-year veteran with 3 combat deployments and the bearing of someone who'd earned his respect through blood and precision, handed her a target scorecard. "Heard you had a busy day yesterday, Ghost 7, Santos said, with the subtle smile that marked acceptance in the tight-knit sniper community. "Just getting back into the swing of things, Master Sergeant." "Well, let's see if you remember how it's done." Maya settled into position behind her rifle, feeling the familiar weight of the stock against her shoulder, the smooth operation of the bolt, the crystal-clear sight picture that had once made her legendary in certain classified circles. The targets were set at 800 meters, a challenging distance that separated competent shooters from exceptional ones. Maya fired 10 rounds in perfect conditions, her breathing controlled, her trigger pull smooth and consistent. All 10 shots went through the same ragged hole in the center of the target. Santos examined the target through binoculars, then looked at Maya with something approaching reverence. "Ghost 7, he said quietly. "Welcome back to the war." That night, news of Maya's restoration to active sniper duties spread through the Marine community like wildfire. The medic who'd been dismissed as support personnel was actually one of the most effective precision shooters in Marine Corps history, and she'd just proved that her skills hadn't diminished during her enforced exile. More importantly, she'd demonstrated something that transcended military bureaucracy: the willingness to risk everything, career, reputation, freedom, to save the lives of fellow Marines. In the years that followed, Maya would train dozens of new snipers, develop innovative tactics for precision shooting in urban environments, and participate in operations that would never be publicly acknowledged. But she would always remember the day she chose to disobey orders in order to do her duty. Because sometimes, the most important test of a warrior isn't whether they can follow orders, but whether they know when to break them for the right reasons. Staff Sergeant Maya "Ghost" Rodriguez had passed that test with the same precision she brought to every shot. Perfectly, and exactly when it mattered most.